The paradigm of patriarchy is built of the concept regarding gender roles, where men are dominant and women are subordinate, as explained by Lerner in 1986. This paradigm was established in our early history through the assumed idea of male dominance as a norm, and any opposing idea was viewed as an exception to the rule. The inferiority of women in the patriarchal paradigm has been justified throughout the years by claiming that the woman's role is maternal, where they are designed to birth children to ensure species survival, as stated by Lerner in 1986. Until recently, the paradigm of patriarchy in healthcare, more specifically midwifery, has been ignored, causing female presence to be invisible or inaccurately represented, as stated by Sandel in 1995. Women were once deemed the wise women in our history, as they took the role of healers and unlicensed medical professionals of their communities, healing with alternative practices such as plants and through spiritual chanting, as explained by Ehrenreich in English in 1973. They were admired for their knowledge, passed down through ancestors and experiences, and at times were seen as magic for their powers of healing. However, as time went on, the men soon began to dominate healthcare, resulting in women being pushed into the lesser power occupations. For example, the men were the doctors, and the women were the nurses who translated the doctor's requests. Ehrenreich in English, 1973. The patriarchy paradigm injected itself into the midwifery profession in the early 1800s through men being present as surgeons and physicians in birth care. However, it was apparent that the majority of power surrounding birth was soon undertaken by the men, as their scope of practice increased from difficult births to pregnancy altogether, as explained by Pabst and Olson, 1997. Throughout the years, the midwifery profession has been deemed lower in power according to the medical hierarchy in relation to doctors, where the role of the doctor is seen to have a higher level of knowledge and therefore have greater control on the care of the woman, her baby, and their safety during birth, as discussed by Earle in 2004. The complications of this power-dominated relationship between doctors and midwives is apparent through the idea that midwives feel the need to fight for the rights of their women to have a physiological birth, due to the conflicting views between the professions, stated by Earle, 2004. An example of this was seen in the 1970s, where the New Zealand government passed the Nurses Act 1971. The act was based around the medicalised ideology of care, as the midwives opposed that of the typical use of scientific management, pain relief, and hospital births, as stated by Smythe in 1998. This influenced the law to state that a midwife must have the presence of a doctor when attending a birth, either in the hospital, birth care unit, or at home, explained by Stojanovic in 2015. Due to this, the midwives lost their autonomy of their career, causing them to seem incapable to be the primary healthcare profession. The definition of feminism is the approach to issues of equality and equity regarding gender, identity, and sexuality understood through social theories and activism, as stated by Herman, 2018. Feminism has played an important role in improving women's well-being, health, and position in society. However, at times, the paradigm has received the idea that it is man-hating, where women refuse any assistance from men, explained by Yule, 2013. The paradigm of feminism has had multiple ways throughout the years, where each decade has brought new styles and values such as education, equal pay, and body rights. Through the paradigm of feminism, a key aspect is the fight for women's rights to their bodies, surrounding the decisions and care they desire. The text of W. McCall and S. McCall in 1989 describes that childbirth should be seen as a part of a woman's life experiences, instead of the defining factor as it has been seen during society's past, which explains the act of feminism working to achieve equality of rights over women's bodies. The effects of the link between childbirth and feminism can be seen through the example of the 1970s, where following the Nurses Act, there was a desire by the women of New Zealand to have control over their bodies and choices in terms of maternity care. The protest groups included those of Parents Centre New Zealand and Home Birth Aotearoa, which shed light on the lack of professional midwifery autonomy, to which they feared would further eliminate the physiological birth process, as stated by Pearman in 2005. Through the use of the feminist paradigm, women have been able to voice their opinions around their bodies during birth. Another link between feminism and midwifery is apparent through the text of W. McCall and S. McCall in 1989, where they state that the profession of midwifery deals with complicated boundaries of care, as they are working with the patriarchal medical world, which at times works against them with the issues of power, control, and social consequences. This was seen in the 1990s, where the Nurses Amendment Act was created as a result of the Save the Midwives protest. A number of women's groups and midwives participated to fight and advocate to ensure that the midwifery profession was kept separate from the nursing scope of practice in New Zealand, enabling the midwives to regain their position in birth care, as stated by Fleming in 1996. This meant that when the bill was passed by government, the midwifery profession was a degree on its own, and that women now had the choice to have their pregnancy and birth under the care of the midwife only, as stated by Surtees in 2003. According to Julieland and Pearman in 2010, this change has resulted to the relationship between midwifery and childbirth to flourish through the paradigm of feminism, as the women were supported through the aspect of partnership, where it includes principles of tūranga kaupapa, which have been developed to uphold the mana of the woman and her family around her decisions for her birth, according to the New Zealand College of Midwives in 2017. The paradigm that I have decided to link to my own life experiences is that of patriarchy. My childhood environment existed of predominantly women, as there were only two males, my dad and my granddad. At the time, I didn't pick up on the gender roles of my family. However, now that I'm older and able to reflect, I realize now that there was a presence of the patriarchal paradigm in my life. The roles were very clear. My granddad was the income earner, working on a farm all day to provide for his family, whereas my nana's role was the housewife, completing the household duties of caring for the children, cleaning the house, and preparing meals for her husband. Although they were a loving couple and did not see anything wrong with their relationship, it was the perspective of the society at the time that influenced them to live in this way. An example of this is that my nana had hoped to train as a nurse when she was younger, and began the start of her degree. However, the role of the woman soon became apparent in her life as she became pregnant at a very young age, which caused her to put her career on hold. 6 children later, and she had been comfortably absorbed into the patriarchal life. This perspective was passed down to my mother, with slight variations as perspectives in society changed slightly. My mother also trained as a nurse while having 2 very young daughters, completing her studies while continuing the patriarchal expectation of being a housewife, ensuring that household duties were complete before my dad finished work. Although my parents' relationship was and still is a happy partnership, it seems unfair that my mum had both responsibilities of working and looking after the family, further indicating the influences that the patriarchal paradigm has on a household. While my mother will always remain as one of my biggest role models for her determination, work ethic, and kind nature, I only wish for my future that there will be further development in the expectations of gender roles so that my potential partner and I can be seen as equal.